Hello and welcome to another Wizard Wins a YGO video. In this video I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on the current format, more specifically on if you can still play Dragon Link in this format. Short answer is yes. Longer answer is I wanted to wait to talk about this until I had a chance to actually play against Spright and Tearlaments. And with Dueling Book being kind of like, I never really liked it, but apparently it's having a lot of issues right now. Maybe it's just with replays. I want to play it in person, so it took a little bit longer for people in my locals to build the deck. I guess that's just the negative of living in a smaller Yu-Gi-Oh community, but I think the main things for Dragon Link, if they open well, It becomes a dice roll like match. If you go first, you put up your big board for Spright. It's all about resolving Very Tall Snow, flipping your stuff face down, because when they face down, you can't confirm that's level 2. They can't link away with it, use it as a seized material. And especially if you're setting up the board right, you can resolve Snow at least twice off of Dark Early No More. Tearlaments, a little bit different. It's really reliant on you drawing hand traps, but as anyone who's been playing Dragon Link for a while, especially the adventure build, like in 45 cards, I am playing 12 hand traps. I'm playing a very similar list that I posted a couple weeks ago for the remote duel extravaganza. However, I did readjust the hand trap lineup. So let's get into that. So going into my hand traps that I'm playing in this format, I think Ash is still a mainstay. It hits a lot. It hits the Reinhardt. It hits Brand of Fusion if they're still playing that in the Tearlaments build. It hits the gigantic Spright, which I think really we're at a point where we're back to the February 2022 mindset where when Adventure first came out, we were like, okay, you need 2 hand traps because you need the one that's going to hit their play and then the one that's going to hit their negation, the Griffin. But in this case, I think you need to hit sort of the gigantic Spright, and then if you hit like the Elf, or you're able to banish the Ronin Tonin or anything else, you're good to go. I have seen people still maining Nib. I'm still iffy on it. I don't disagree with it. It's just hard finding the deck space. So yeah, 3 Ash for sure, because it can hit the gigantic Spright, as I said before. 3 Gamma, because Gamma can hit everything. It can hit Tearlaments fusions if they only dump 1. They're not able to chain block. It can hit the gigantic Spright again and take it off the field, which is really good because they can even use it to make a Spright Elf if they have the extenders. Gamma's really good. So strong driver, but as well, if you're able to resolve this, if they Ash your what's it called? Quick launch or your emergency teleport, then that's a free chaos ruler right there. So for the next 3, the only other 3 we have the 3 Veiler. This one, I'm not sure if I want 3 or 2 of. It's another one that hits the gigantic Spright, it hits the Elf, it hits a lot of things in that matchup. And the Tearlaments, it hits Reinhardt, it can hit really some of the other normal summons. I'm drawing a blank on the Tearlaments matchup right now. I only played it the one time and I got lucky. For example, his Kalos Mills were literally 5 spells. So, no, I still think Veiler's pretty good. I think I might drop it to 2 because we're playing the double DD Crow, which I kind of want to move that to 3 and drop the Veiler to 2. Yeah, it's Dragon Ruler. You know you're prioritizing the light and dark hand traps. So I think between DD Crow, Veiler, Gamma not as much, but Gamma's still light to banish for Chaos Ruler. And then I'm playing the 1 Ghost Ogre. If I were to up the deck count to 50, I'd definitely play a second one and maybe even a third. This is you got it in your deck for 2 reasons. 1, if you have the emergency teleport or if you have an extra one, then you can set the tele, activate on your opponent's turn, then play around Dark Ruler, because then you summon the Ogre as an on-field interruption after your field's been negated. Or you can just, if you have Halki Fibrax access and nothing really else, you can just summon the Ogre, and then Halki Fibrax only stops you from activating the effect on that turn. So on the following turn, you can use the Ogre as an interruption. I really like Ogre for how it interacts with Gigantic Spright, because it detaches for effect, not cost. You're able to stop the effect from resolving, and then their plays, and then you also remove it off the field. So they can play around it if they make another Xyz. before they use the gigantic Spright, because Spright doesn't have to detach from itself, it's just a material from the field. So they can do that, so you just have to watch out for that. I think we're getting to the point where Spright is pretty, like, not linear, but kind of all its big lines have already been figured out, but Tearlament, I think, will take a while, especially when the new support comes on Darkwing Blast, as well as in Magnificent Maidens. So that's thoughts on the hand traps. The only other thought I'll put in is, in the extra deck now, I recommend you play Dark again. Like, I was off Dark because there wasn't really anything good. It was, like, I love Dark when you can revive Verte Anaconda and either use the effect or make Exco Talker. Last format, yeah, you could get the stuff from, like, Branded Despia, but nothing too crazy. The Rose Dragons were good to take, but other than that, this, you have two main decks, Tearlament and Spright, where they both have dark monsters that go in the grave, so you can always use it as a link line. The other interesting play I did with this, when I was playing against Tearlament yesterday at Locals, I had my Dark. Well, actually, no, I had Adventure Token, and then for turn, basically my hand was Boot Sector Launch with, because I went a Borland IP board, and then they Dark Ruler, but I had Boot Sector Launch and Rocket Synchron that I searched off an Apps Router that I milled off the Chaos Ruler. So basically my thought process was, he had Dragus Taphilia and Tearlament Kaleidoheart. So I'm like, okay, I want to bait the Dragus Taphilia negate, so I'm like, Dark effect, he had a Shaylin engraved, so I target that, because that would have been Unicorn Spin. So he felt he had to negate it, then I got Rocket Synchron into Boral Savage. I was able to Boral Savage, equip to get the counters, attack over the Kaleidoheart so it doesn't get effect, because it wasn't sent by card effect. And then I crashed the Dark into the Dragus Taphilia, which I thought was an awesome play, because Dark, you can search DD Curl off it. So that helped me to sort of, like, we weren't exactly a top deck, but it was a pretty, like, resource late game. Like, we kind of went through, like, this was like the turn 3, turn 4. So thought it was a cool interaction. I mean, it ended up he played Mystic Mine. We basically went in time, and I had more life points at the end of it. So yeah. So overall, those are my thoughts on the current meta. I think Dragon Link, very playable. I don't think you need to, in order to compete, and I saw, like, I think there was a Columbus regional where pure Dragon Link got top 8. So I think we're at the point, maybe when the format's more figured out, not so much, but I think we're at the point now you can still play this deck and do fine. So don't feel you need to go out and spend a ridiculous amount of money to get Tearlament or Spright to compete at, like, a regional or even at your locals. So if you liked the video, let me know, and stay tuned for the next one.